At my sister's wedding, my parents demanded I hand over my penthouse keys right in front of 50 guests. When I said no, Mom slapped me so hard my earring flew off. I walked out, made a call. In an hour, a man showed up at the reception, and when Mom saw who it was, she started screaming. That morning, the slap was still hours away. I walked into the Hawthorne Grand Hotel at 9 a.m. The ballroom was already dripping with white roses and gold accents. Exactly the kind of classic elegance my sister Jenna lived for. My mother Denise saw me first. Her smile fixed for the guests faltered for just a second. Kelsey. Finally. She looked me up and down. Is that a suit? It's a wedding, dear, not a deposition. I looked down at my tailored navy silk suit. It's professional, Mom. It's stiff, she said, her voice dropping. Jenna is upstairs in her robe looking like a princess. You look like her lawyer. My father Frank walked over, clapping a hand on my shoulder. Kelsey. Flying solo, I see. Still no +1. He didn't wait for an answer. Too busy with that. Whatever it is you do with computers. It's venture capital, Dad. I'm a head of analytics. Right. Weird. He dismissed my entire career with a wave of his hand. Well, Jenna's Trevor is already here. Now there's a fine young man. Stable. Ambitious. Ambitious was only a good word when it applied to a man or to Jenna. When it applied to me, it was stiff, weird, or difficult. They had no idea. My weird job had just closed an $80 million deal in Asia. The little apartment they always joked about was a $3.5 million penthouse in the seaport. The lawyer suit I was wearing cost more than my dad's monthly mortgage. But I never said anything. Why? I'd been asking myself that for years. Why did I let them do this? It wasn't weakness that kept me silent. It was a survival mechanism. People who grow up like I did, we live in an invisible prison. A jail cell built not with bars but with the desperate flickering hope that if we're just quiet enough, just good enough, just accommodating enough, one day they'll finally see us. This silence becomes a shield. It's the invisible chain of the survivor. You learn that your achievements only matter if they approve of them. Anything else is a threat. And my success was a threat. I watched as Jenna descended the grand staircase to greet her friends. She wasn't just the bride, she was the sun, and everyone else was just a planet orbiting her. My parents watched her with a kind of desperate adoration. I wasn't just witnessing a wedding. I was witnessing the golden child dynamic in real time. Jenna was their masterpiece. Every ambition they ever had, every failure Frank ever endured in his own struggling manufacturing business was poured into her. She was their reflection. And me, the black sheep. My success, my independent success, the kind I achieved without their help or approval, it wasn't just confusing to them. It was an injury. It was a narcissistic injury to their entire life's narrative. It proved their control was meaningless. So they had to diminish me. They had to make my achievements small so theirs through Jenna could look big. Kelsey, stop lurking by the wall and make yourself useful, my mother snapped, her voice pulling me back to the present. Go check the place cards. Make sure my brother isn't seated next to his ex-wife. I knotted the invisible chains, feeling heavier than ever. Of course, Mom. I went back to being the good, quiet, useful daughter. I spent the next hour moving through the cocktail reception, smiling, invisible, checking names on cards, all while my stomach twisted in knots. The cocktail hour was worse. The 50 guests weren't just friends. They were the who's who of Boston's business community. Investors, partners, the kinds of people I negotiated with every day. But here they didn't see me. I watched my father Frank holding court by the ice sculpture, laughing too loudly. The manufacturing sector is all about legacy, he boomed to a man I recognized from a major equity firm. And my legacy is strong. He gestured toward Jenna, who was networking effortlessly, champagne flute in hand. Jenna just launched a new influencer campaign for us, Frank continued. Brand engagement is up 30%. The man nodded, impressed. Smart girl you've got there, Frank. We're very proud. I was standing right next to them. They looked through me. I was just a ghost in a silk suit. I felt invisible. Not just overlooked, but erased. The success I'd achieved in their world, The world of high-stakes finance they so desperately wanted to be a part of didn't count. It didn't fit their narrative. I needed air. I stepped away from the crowd, finding a small, quiet alcove near the service hallway, just trying to breathe. That's when I heard their voices from a private room just down the hall, the door slightly ajar. Jenna's light and excited. "So you're really going to do it during the speech?" Then my mother, Denise. "It's the perfect time. Everyone will be watching. She can't possibly say no." My blood went cold. "Are you sure?" Frank, Denise asked. "She's been off lately." Of course, I'm sure. My father's voice was firm, confident. "I'll announce it during the toast." A grand gesture. My daughter Kelsey, in her generosity, is gifting her penthouse to her sister. He chuckled. "The whole room will applaud. All 50 of our biggest partners and investors will be right there." Jenna giggled. "Oh, Daddy, that's brilliant. She'll have to say yes. She's obsessed with her professional image. She would never dare make a scene in front of those people." I leaned against the wallpaper, my hand covering my mouth. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a clumsy assumption. It was a trap. A publicly staged ambush designed with cold, calculated cruelty. They weren't just counting on my silence. They were weaponizing my professionalism against me. They knew I wouldn't make a scene in front of my peers. They knew I would swallow the humiliation to protect my reputation. This was the thanks I got for the $80 million deal. This was the reward for being the good daughter who never asked for anything. I felt the last thread of hope, the one that lived in that stupid, invisible prison, finally snap. The fog of a lifetime's worth of doubt cleared, and all that was left was a cold, terrifying clarity. I walked back into the ballroom, my steps steady. The air felt different. The music sounded tinny. I saw my father walk toward the small stage, picking up a champagne glass. He tapped the microphone. "If I could have everyone's attention," he said, his voice booming with false sincerity. "My wife Denise and I would like to make a special toast to our daughter Jenna and our new son-in-law Trevor." He smiled, looking out at the 50 captive guests. And then his eyes found mine. He smiled a small, knowing, triumphant smile. He had no idea what he was about to do. "My family and I believe that a strong marriage is built on a strong foundation," Frank said, beaming at the crowd. "And to help our wonderful children Jenna and Trevor build their foundation, my other daughter Kelsey has graciously offered a truly magnificent gift." He paused for dramatic effect. The room was silent. "Kelsey has decided to give Jenna and Trevor her $3.5 million penthouse in the seaport." The room exploded in applause. People were gasping, turning to look at me. Jenna put her hands to her mouth in a perfect performance of shock. Trevor grinned, wrapping his arm around her. "Kelsey, come on up," Frank called out, waving me forward. "Let's hear from the generous sister." I felt 50 pairs of eyes on me, the weight of their expectations, their judgment. I could see the investors at the front table, the ones I knew personally, watching me with curiosity. I stood up. I walked calmly to the stage, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Frank handed me the microphone, his smile tight, his eyes cold and warning me. "Don't you dare." I took the microphone. My hand wasn't even shaking. "Thank you, Dad," I said, my voice perfectly clear and steady. "I'm afraid there's been a slight misunderstanding." The room went utterly silent. Frank's smile froze. "The penthouse isn't a gift, it's my home. And it's not available." You could have heard a pin drop. Jenna's face crumpled. "Kelsey, what are you doing?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Don't be selfish, Kelsey," my father's voice boomed, grabbing another microphone. "This is your sister's day." "My sister's day doesn't entitle her to my property, Dad. This wasn't discussed." "Kelsey, please," Trevor chimed in, trying to play the peacemaker. "We take such good care of it." "I'm sure you would," I said. "But the answer is no." That's when my mother Denise lost it. She stormed onto the stage, her face a mask of purple rage. She ripped the microphone from my hand. "You ungrateful, selfish girl," she shrieked, the feedback screeching through the speakers. "After everything we've done for you, you pull a stunt like this. You're ruining everything." "Mom, you're making a scene," I said quietly. "I'm making a scene." And then she slapped me. It wasn't a small tap. It was a full-force, open-palm strike that cracked across the ballroom. My head snapped to the side. The microphone in her other hand broadcast the sound, a sharp, ugly thwack. My diamond earring flew from my ear, skittering across the marble floor. Silence. Absolute deafening silence. I could feel the heat rising on my cheek. I saw Jenna's friend in the corner, her phone still up, the red live icon blinking. They were live streaming. They had just broadcast my mother assaulting me to the entire internet. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I stood there for a long beat, letting every single person in that room absorb what they had just witnessed. Slowly, deliberately, I bent down. I picked up my earring. I calmly refastened it, my hands perfectly steady. I turned back to my family. My mother was breathing heavily, her chest heaving. My father looked like he was going to be sick. "Congratulations on your wedding, Jenna," I said, my voice clear. Then I turned and walked off the stage. I walked through the silent, parted crowd, out the ballroom doors, and into the grand lobby. I didn't run. I walked. I pressed the button for the elevator. The doors opened. I stepped inside. And as the polished brass doors slid shut, sealing me away from the chaos, I pulled out my phone. It rang once. "Russell," I said, my voice low and cold. "It's Kelsey. It happened. Exactly like we predicted." "Are you okay?" His voice was calm, concerned. "I will be," I said. "Execute the contingency plan." It took less than an hour for the fallout to begin. I was back in my penthouse, an ice pack pressed to my cheek, watching the live stream comments explode. The clip of the slap was already everywhere. Back at the Hawthorne Grand, my father and mother were desperately trying to salvage the party. They were telling guests I was unstable, that I'd had a public breakdown. They were trying to repaint the narrative to make me the villain. Jenna was crying in the corner, not out of empathy, but out of humiliation that her perfect day was ruined. Then, exactly as promised in the hook, the grand ballroom doors swung open. It wasn't a guest. It was Russell. He walked in wearing a perfectly tailored suit, flanked by two lawyers carrying briefcases. He radiated an authority that silenced the room instantly. My father Frank, who was trying to schmooze an investor by the bar, froze. His glass stopped halfway to his mouth. I could see the blood drain from his face as he recognized the man he'd been chasing for a meeting for 6 months. My mother Denise saw him, and then saw my father's reaction. She let out a small, strangled scream. "Frank." "Denise Russell," said his voice calm, but cutting through the silence. I wasn't on the guest list, but I felt I should stop by. Mr. Russell," my father stammered, rushing forward. "I had no idea you were in Boston. What a surprise." "I'm sure it is," Russell said, ignoring my father's outstretched hand. "I'm here because I have a vested interest in this family. A 45% interest, to be exact." Frank stopped. "What? What are you talking about?" "I'm the silent partner in your company, Frank. The one who's been funding your expansion. The one you've been trying to meet." My mother's hand went to her throat. "But that's not why I'm here," Russell continued. "I'm here because of Kelsey. That girl," my mother started. "She is unstable, she ruined." "The woman you're referring to," Russell interrupted, "is Kelsey, my head of analytics. The weird computer job you mock. She leads the venture capital division that just secured your firm an $80 million valuation. The deal you were just taking credit for. That was her work. She is the single most valuable asset I have." The room was completely still. Jenna and Trevor had turned white. Russell's gaze then shifted, landing squarely on my mother. "Denise, you might not recognize me, but you knew my late wife, Sarah." My mother gasped. "Sarah? Sarah was your sister, Russell," said his voice softening with a dangerous edge. "My wife. And before she passed, she made me promise one thing, that I would watch over her niece Kelsey. She knew you wouldn't. She knew you'd see her as less than. Just as you always saw Sarah as less than." My 45% investment in Frank's company wasn't just business. It was me keeping a promise to my dead wife. He nodded to one of the lawyers. "And now I'm here to protect my asset and to honor her memory." The lawyer opened a briefcase, connecting a laptop to the ballroom's large projector screens. "I believe you're all familiar with this," Russell said. The live stream video filled the screens. All 50 guests, all those investors and partners, were forced to watch again. They saw Frank's speech. They saw me refuse. They saw Denise shriek, "You, Ungrateful, selfish girl. And then they saw the slap. Loud, clear, undeniable. My father looked like he was going to collapse. Public coercion and assault, Russell announced as the video played on loop. It's a bad look, Frank. But more than that, it's a breach of contract. What? Contract, Frank whispered. The shareholder agreement, the one you clearly never read, page 52. The moral turpitude clause. Any public action by a majority partner that brings disgrace or legal liability to the company is grounds for an immediate, non-negotiable buyout. He nodded to the second lawyer, who stepped forward and placed a thick document on the head table right on top of the wedding cake. This is my offer to buy your remaining 55%, Russell said. For pennies on the dollar. Or you can face the consequences. You're joking, Frank whispered, staring at the buyout document. This is everything. My company. It was your company, Russell said, his voice void of emotion. Here is your choice, Frank. You will take this offer, which will barely cover your debts, and you will sign over your shares. Or option 2, you refuse and I will call an emergency vote of the board tomorrow morning. Given that the video of your assault on my head of analytics is now trending on Twitter, I am confident I will have the votes to have you removed as CEO for gross misconduct. Either way, you're done. This option just lets you disappear. No, Denise wailed from the floor. No, you can't. Frank, do something. But Frank couldn't do anything. He was staring at the man he'd recognized from the investor equity firm. Frank, the man said, standing up and buttoning his jacket. We're pulling the Stratford Mills contract, effective immediately. What, Jim? No, you can't. I just watched you allow an assault in front of me, Frank. I can't have my brand associated with this. He turned and walked out. It was like a dam breaking. 2 more men stood up. We're out too, Frank, one said. My wife saw that live stream. She'd kill me if I did business with you. Trevor, Jenna's new husband, was watching all of this, his face pale. He looked at Jenna, who was sobbing about her ruined wedding. He looked at his own parents, who were already standing by the exit beckoning to him. He looked at the departing investors. Then he slowly took his hand off Jenna's shoulder, turned and walked away from the head table to join his parents, leaving her there alone. The ambush was complete. But this time, I wasn't the victim. That was 6 months ago. Frank's company filed for bankruptcy 2 months later. The buyout from Russell was just enough to pay the severance for his employees. He and Denise lost the house. I heard they're living in a small rented apartment across town. Jenna's marriage didn't even last the honeymoon. Trevor's family annulled it, claiming fraud, though I'm not sure what the legal basis was. It didn't matter. They were gone. It's strange. You'd think a family built on 50 years of reputation would be stronger, but their foundation was never real. It's what I call the illusion of the empty vault. My family's power wasn't based on being anything. It was based on having things. Having status, having money, having the right connections. Their entire identity was just a shiny gold-plated vault. But the moment Russell opened the door, everyone saw there was nothing inside. They weren't strong. They were just rich. And when the money and the reputation were gone, they didn't just fall. They evaporated. Russell was true to his word. I was promoted. I'm a senior partner at the firm now. The Penthouse is still my sanctuary. Last month I used my new salary and the capital from my stock options to finalize the paperwork. I established the Sarah Legacy Fund in honor of the aunt I barely knew but who saved me twice once, by making Russell promise to watch over me, and again by giving him the leverage to do it. It's a microfund providing seed capital and mentorship for young female entrepreneurs who are overlooked, underestimated, or told their ideas are too weird. The ones who don't fit the mold. The ones like me who are building their own foundations. I'm standing in my penthouse right now watching the Boston skyline light up. It's quiet, peaceful. For the first time in my life, I don't feel invisible. I just feel free. Have you ever had to choose between your family and your self-respect? Share your story in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about finding your own strength.